No matter which serger you own, the cutting width is something people always ask about. So on a serger, you have a knife that cuts the fabric, and it is adjustable in or out depending on your thickness of fabric. So this is different than the stitch width of your sewing machine. So it's a little confusing. So when people think that they're adjusting your cutting width, you think you're going to get a wider or narrower stitch, and that's actually not correct. So here is what we're going to do. We're working through all the video tutorials of the Singer Elite SE017, but honestly, sergers are pretty similar when it comes to this particular topic. So even though your serger might be a little different than this one, follow along and hopefully you'll pick up a few tips along the way. Plus at the end, we have a whole list of all the free video serger tutorials we've done. And again, you can follow along and master your serger with these videos. So first off, let's just kind of talk about where the knife is and how you adjust it. So right here, there is a knob. So somewhere in this area, sometimes on some sergers it's down here, but it's near this area. As you adjust it, you can kind of see the knife going in and out. Now, if you're going this way, you're pushing against the spring that's holding the top blade and the bottom blade together, kind of like how scissors are pushed together to cut the fabric. So if you turn it so you're bringing it closer to the needles, it turns very quickly and easily. But when you go the other way, it's sometimes a little harder. A tip is to actually release the pressure of the knife, turn it, and then you can easily kind of do that. You also can take the knife and twist it up and out of the way. So if you're getting into threading the serger or threading the needle, sometimes I do that just to get my hands in there a little easier. And it's sharp, but it's not gonna like cut you. So you can touch it and such. You'll just want to swing that back down, and right now, because of where I'm located with the needles, I just had to push it a little further and it'll snap back into place. Since we're talking about the knife, just remember you do have a spare knife, so eventually they will get dull. Just depends on your fabric that you're actually cutting. If you're working a lot more polyesters or fleece type fabric, your knife is going to get duller faster, just like your scissors or rotary blade will get duller. So you can just switch these out. You're actually just switching the bottom one, and that is good. Then go ahead and get a replacement blade ordered, and you can have that for the next time you have to replace it. So eventually, I'm usually good for a couple years with all the serging I do. So keep in mind, it's not like you're having to change these like on a monthly basis. Okay. So what are we talking about when we're adjusting for the knife? So if you're not sure where to go, just kind of move the knife left, right, and then set it for the middle. So that's where you're going to start. So here's an example of what people often will send me pictures of and ask me what's wrong with their tension. What we're seeing here is that there's loops hanging off the edge of the fabric, but it's not so much that there is loops or a tension issue at all. All we're going to be talking about is that there's just not enough fabric to fill in the distance of the stitch. So in other words, the knife is way too close to the needles, it's cutting it off, and there's not enough to fill it in. So think of it as filling the fabric out to the edges of the overlock stitch. Now, how do you know? Well, you're just going to have to test it. If you're seeing gaps or air between the edge of the fabric and the edge of the stitch, then what we're going to do is we're going to move the knife away from the needles, kind of letting it fill in or leave more fabric to fill in this area. If you are on the opposite side of this and you're finding that your fabric's kind of like almost tunneling, you have too much fabric for that stitch. Maybe it's kind of a bulkier stitch or one that's kind of fluffy and filling out. Then what we want to do is just cut it a little bit more, so that will help so it's not filling it in and bulging it out. So you can see that as an issue when you start to stitch. Just take the knife. If you make it worse, you went the wrong way. If you made it better, you're heading in the right direction. Again, I would just kind of find that happy middle when you're doing 2 layers of, say, just a nice middle cotton fabric, and you should be back to normal. And then again, adjust it as you get to different fabrics. But again, very common question we get is, why are my loops hanging off the edge of my fabric? And it's actually answered by adjusting your cutting width. I hope you'll check out all the videos right here at the end. You can start binge watching them back at the beginning of the playlist and learn everything you need to know from beginning to end on how to master your serger.